Risk one, impulsivity that doesn't end with the tattoo. The first thing studies reveal is that women with tattoos tend to score higher in impulsivity. Now, on the surface, impulsivity sounds fun. It means she's spontaneous, adventurous, exciting, and in the beginning, that's exactly what pulls men in. She's the girl who says yes to last minute road trips, who orders shots at midnight, who laughs at rules and turns life into a thrill ride. But here's the catch: impulsivity doesn't stay fun forever. It leaks into every part of the relationship. That same thrill seeking energy that got her the tattoo. It's the same energy that can lead to reckless spending, explosive arguments, and even cheating when temptation shows up. Think about it. A tattoo is a permanent decision, but often made in a fleeting moment. A breakup, a drunken night, a surge of emotion. That pattern, living for the now, ignoring consequences, often shows up in her relationships too. It's not that every tattooed woman is unstable, but statistically, there's a higher chance she struggles with self control. Here's why that matters: relationships require delayed gratification, they require patience, consistency, and long term thinking. If her psychology leans toward do what feels good now, you'll eventually be the one paying for it later. It might be exciting at first, but when the dust settles, impulsivity becomes instability, and instability kills relationships. So when you see the ink, remember it's not just a symbol of art, it might be a symbol of how she handles life itself in the moment, without a plan, without thinking of tomorrow. Risk two, the hidden link between tattoos and mental health struggles. This is where things get darker. Multiple studies in clinical psychology show that women with multiple tattoos have higher correlations with anxiety, depression, and self harm histories. Tattoos for many aren't just decoration, they're coping mechanisms. They're marks of trauma, symbols of pain, attempts to regain control over a body or a past that felt out of control. On the surface, that sounds poetic. A tattoo of a bird after heartbreak, a quote about strength after loss. But here's the uncomfortable truth: if the wounds that drove those tattoos haven't healed, you're not just dating her, you're dating her unresolved pain. And pain doesn't sit quietly, it shows up as mood swings, sudden withdrawals, emotional volatility. One day she's overflowing with affection, the next she's distant, cold, or even self destructive. Her ink might look beautiful, but beneath it could lie scars, psychological ones that haven't fully closed. This doesn't make her a bad person, it makes her human. But as a man, you need to ask yourself, are you ready to carry that weight? Because men often mistake intensity for love. They see her passion, her edge, her darkness, and they think, this is real, this is deep. But intensity isn't the same as stability. And if her tattoos are a map of pain she's still running from, you'll eventually feel that pain too. Dating a woman with tattoos means asking the question, is this art or is this armor? And if it's armor, is she still at war with herself? Risk three, attention seeking that never ends. Let's be brutally honest. Tattoos are designed to be seen. They're visual signals, public statements, a way of saying, look at me. Now, plenty of women say they get tattoos for themselves, and sometimes that's true. But research shows tattoos are strongly correlated with higher narcissism and attention seeking traits. Here's why that matters in a relationship. If her self worth depends on outside validation, your attention will never be enough. She'll crave more likes on Instagram, stares at the bar, compliments from strangers, and when you stop giving her the constant reassurance she's addicted to, she'll find it elsewhere. Attention seeking women often create subtle chaos. They'll post suggestive photos online while claiming it's just confidence. They'll flirt harmlessly in public and dismiss your concerns with, you're just insecure. But it's not harmless, it's fuel. Every glance, every compliment, every DM is another hit of dopamine. And if she's wired for that kind of validation, you'll always be competing with the world for her focus. In the beginning, it feels intoxicating. Everyone's looking at her and you get to be the man on her arm. But over time, it turns sour because attention seeking doesn't stop at admiration. It often leads to temptation. And temptation, when paired with impulsivity, is a dangerous mix. So when you see the ink, ask yourself, is this self expression or is it an advertisement? Because if it's the latter, you'll never be her only audience. Risk 4. Risky sexual behavior hidden beneath the ink. One of the most consistent findings in sociological and psychological research is the correlation between tattoos and risky sexual behavior. Now, before you think this is just judgment, let's be clear. Studies show that tattooed women report higher numbers of sexual partners and more openness to casual encounters than their non tattooed peers. Why? Because tattoos are often a marker of sensation seeking, the craving for novelty, excitement, and rebellion against norms. That same craving doesn't just stop at skin, it often extends into sexual exploration. Here's the double edged sword. On one hand, this can make her magnetic. She might be adventurous, passionate, fiery in the bedroom. But on the other hand, that thrill seeking comes with risk. She may struggle with long term monogamy. She may chase novelty when the relationship starts to feel routine. The psychology here is clear. Tattoos are often an outward sign of inward openness to risk. And if you're looking for stability, you need to understand what you're signing up for because passion without discipline, that burns fast and leaves ashes. Risk 5, aggression and conflict in relationships. Another surprising link found in personality research is the connection between tattoos and higher aggression scores. Now, this doesn't mean every tattooed woman is violent. What it does mean is that women with tattoos are more likely to be confrontational, quick-tempered, and resistant to authority. In a relationship, this shows up as frequent arguments, heated conflicts, and a tendency to escalate rather than de-escalate. That fire can feel intoxicating at first. A woman who argues passionately, who pushes back, who refuses to be tamed. It feels exciting, but excitement fades, and what you're left with is chaos. Conflict becomes the default language. Small disagreements turn into full-scale battles. Boundaries are tested, and respect erodes. And when a woman is wired for aggression, relationships become arenas, not sanctuaries. Psychologically, aggression is tied to a need for dominance. A tattoo can be a signal of rebellion, of defiance, of someone who isn't afraid to break rules. That edge may attract you at first, but in the long term, it can grind you down because love can't thrive where war never ends. Risk 6, tattoos as symbols of trauma and unresolved pain. This is the darkest risk of all. Research in clinical psychology reveals that many tattoos, especially multiple ones, are linked to histories of trauma, abuse, or self-destructive behavior. For many women, tattoos are more than decoration. They're scars with ink. They're attempts to reclaim ownership of a body or a past that once felt powerless. On the surface, it looks poetic. A rose after heartbreak, a phoenix after loss, a quote about strength after betrayal. But here's what you need to understand. If those wounds haven't healed, the tattoo isn't closure. It's camouflage. And camouflage doesn't erase the pain. It just hides it until it resurfaces in mood swings, in attachment issues, in cycles of self-sabotage. You might fall in love with her resilience, with her fire, with her edge. But in time, you'll realize you're also carrying her ghosts. And here's the harsh truth. You can't save her from that. No amount of love will erase trauma that hasn't been healed from within. So when you see tattoos, ask yourself, are they just art or are they armor? And if they're armor, are you ready for the battle scars that come with them? Risk 7, a lifelong craving for attention. Tattoos are visual statements. They're designed to be seen, noticed, and commented on. And while plenty of women will say, I got this just for me, the psychology doesn't lie. Tattoos are strongly correlated with higher levels of narcissism and attention-seeking behavior. Now, in the beginning, this feels thrilling. You're with a woman who draws eyes everywhere she goes. Strangers compliment her, people stare at her ink. She becomes the center of attention. And you get the ego boost of being the man by her side. But over time, that craving for validation doesn't stop. In fact, it intensifies. She'll chase likes on Instagram, post more revealing photos, seek compliments from strangers because attention is her fuel and the harsh reality. Your attention alone may never be enough. Psychologically, tattoos serve as permanent advertisements of identity. They broadcast uniqueness, rebellion, sexuality. But what's exciting for the crowd becomes exhausting for the man in her life. Because attention seeking doesn't end at admiration, it often flirts with temptation. And temptation is the doorway to betrayal. So when you date a woman with tattoos, remember you're not just dating her, you're dating her audience. Risk 8, a rebellion against stability. One of the strongest psychological patterns tied to tattoos is nonconformity. Tattoos are by nature a rebellion against traditional norms, and that rebellious streak might seem sexy at first. She's bold, daring, unapologetic. But in relationships, rebellion often translates into resistance. She might resist commitment, resist compromise, resist the structure that healthy love requires. Rules, boundaries, routines, the very things that make relationships last can feel suffocating to her. And instead of stability, she craves disruption. This is why studies show tattooed women score higher on measures of deviance and antisocial behavior. It doesn't mean she's breaking laws, it means she's psychologically wired to push limits. That can feel intoxicating when you're caught in her whirlwind. But once the honeymoon fades, you'll feel the cost. Because rebellion doesn't stop at society, it bleeds into intimacy. A woman who tattoos her skin as a statement of freedom may never fully be satisfied living by the rules of partnership. And if you try to settle her down, you'll be fighting against her very nature. Risk 9, the shadow of regret. Here's an uncomfortable fact. Studies show women regret tattoos more often than men. At first, the ink feels empowering, sexy, liberating. But years later, it can turn into a symbol of mistakes, poor decisions, or phases of life they wish they could erase. And here's where it gets dangerous for you. If she regrets her tattoos, there's a strong chance she'll regret other decisions too, including her choice in men. That regret can breed restlessness, dissatisfaction, and the constant belief that something better is out there. Tattoo regret also hints at deeper impulsivity and lack of foresight. A woman who couldn't think long-term about permanent ink may also struggle to think long-term about permanent love. You'll notice it in small ways. She second-guesses herself, changes her mind, often rewrites her own history. What was once her proudest decision becomes her private shame. And that shame doesn't stay hidden. It leaks into the relationship. So when you date a woman with tattoos, understand you may not just be dating her ink. You may also be dating her regret. And regret is poison to long-term love. Risk 10, a higher likelihood of divorce. Sociological studies have shown that women with tattoos are statistically more likely to experience divorce and relationship breakdowns compared to women without ink. Why? Because the same traits linked to tattoos, impulsivity, risk-taking, nonconformity, don't mix well with the patience and long-term investment that marriage demands. At first, this rebellious streak feels intoxicating. She's passionate, fiery, unapologetic. But when the responsibilities of partnership weigh in, shared finances, kids, sacrifices, her psychology fights back. The stability marriage requires can feel like a prison cell for someone wired for freedom. Add to this her attention-seeking tendencies. If she craves validation from the outside world, monogamy will eventually feel suffocating. That hunger for something new doesn't vanish just because she signed papers. In fact, it often grows stronger when routine sets in. A tattoo itself doesn't cause divorce, but it's a marker of deeper traits that make divorce more likely. And if you ignore those markers, you may find yourself blindsided when the fire that once drew you to her burns your life down years later. Risk 11. The drama never ends. Here's the final risk, and maybe the most dangerous one. Tattooed women are more likely to live in cycles of chaos and drama. Studies link tattoos to higher rates of sensation-seeking, aggression, and emotional volatility. Put these together, and you get someone who thrives in storms. Peace feels boring. Calm feels dead. Drama, on the other hand, feels alive. At first, this can be addictive. You feel wanted, desired, swept up in the whirlwind of passion. She texts nonstop, kisses like she's starving, fights like it's life or death. But over time, this chaos erodes you. You find yourself walking on eggshells, never knowing if you'll wake up to affection or anger. Drama becomes the glue of the relationship. Breakups, makeups, jealousy, tears, passion, it all blends into a roller coaster that leaves you drained. And here's the cruelest twist. The more you try to calm the storm, the more she stirs it. Because for her, drama isn't dysfunction, it's oxygen. A tattoo isn't proof of drama by itself, but when combined with all the other traits impulsivity, trauma, attention seeking, aggression it paints a clear picture. She doesn't just have ink on her skin, she carries chaos in her blood. So there you have it, the 11 risks of dating a woman with tattoos backed by studies: impulsivity, mental health struggles, attention seeking, risky sexual behavior, aggression, trauma, rebellion, regret, divorce, drama, and more. Now, does this mean every tattooed woman is toxic? Of course not. There are always exceptions. But psychology isn't about exceptions, it's about patterns. And the patterns here are undeniable. Tattoos are signals. They're not just about art, they're about psychology. They tell a story about risk taking, instability, and an appetite for chaos that could spill into your relationship. The ink may look beautiful, but behind the beauty might lie impulsivity, pain, or self destruction. And if you ignore the signs, you'll be the one paying the price. The truth is, men don't get burned because women hide who they are. Men get burned because they ignore the signals staring them in the face. So the next time you're drawn to a woman with tattoos, ask yourself, are you ready for what those tattoos might mean? Or are you mistaking rebellion for compatibility? If you want more raw, unfiltered truths like this, the kind society doesn't want you to hear, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment with the word ink if you've ever dated a tattooed woman. Share your story. Did you see these risks play out? Because once you understand the psychology behind the ink, you'll never look at tattoos the same way again.